Do you sometimes ask yourself, why am I not successful like that person? Are there people in your life who you consider to be successful and you wonder, how are they successful and I am not? Well, in today's video, we'll be going over how we can begin to transform ourselves to become more successful than we are currently. How to get more happiness, how to get more success, how to have life work for us instead of against us. We'll be utilizing the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz in today's video, covering chapters 7, 8, and 9 as we explore these questions and more. All right, let's get into it. I have hand-selected one key quote that stood out to me the most from each chapter. Let's start with chapter 7. To a large extent, we react to petty annoyances, frustrations, and the like with grumpiness, dissatisfaction, resentment, and irritability purely out of habit. Happiness is a state of mind in which our thinking is pleasant majority of the time. We think better, perform better, feel better, and are healthier when we are happy. A very interesting study about happiness discovered that when we are thinking pleasant thoughts, we can see better, taste better, smell better, hear better, and even feel things better. Typically, the more optimistic person is far more successful than the pessimistic person. We often catch ourselves saying, I'll be happy when this and this happens, for example. But that is just not how happiness works. You need to first get happy, and then the rest will come. Happiness is not something that is earned or deserved. Happiness is simply a state of mind. So if it's better relationships you want, more success you want, better health you want, you can choose to be happy, get into that state of mind to then get those benefits of being successful, having better relationships, having better health. And so choosing to be happy, to get into that state of mind, is not only a gift to yourself, but a gift to others. Because if your health is improving, if your success is improving, if your relationships are improving, that means you're adding so much value to people, way more value than you probably were giving when you were unhappy. You've got to think about happiness as a habit. It's a habit you need to start implementing on a daily basis. Thoughts are just as much of a habit as going out for a run, making sure you get your daily exercise in. So if you habitually think unpleasant thoughts, then of course that leads to being unhappy. So if you start journaling and start reflecting and thinking like, oh, I do think negatively about myself a lot of the times, or I judge people a lot of the times. I think a lot of unpleasant thoughts about myself and others a lot of the times. Maybe I should make a change so that I can start being happy, get that planted and rooted so that I can start cultivating the things I want out of life. So I can start adding more value to people and to myself. So if you set that ultimatum for yourself and make that decision to start thinking positive thoughts, pleasant thoughts about yourself and others, as soon as an unpleasant thought about yourself or another person pops up, recognize it, be self-aware of it, intercept it, and immediately replace it with something pleasant about yourself or the other person. And then as you do that more and more, eventually the new habit will be you thinking a lot of pleasant thoughts about yourself and others. You'll start seeing that all of a sudden you're starting to get happier and happier and happier, which is then producing better results for you in your life. Understand that happiness is purely internal. It is not produced by objects or items or material things. It's produced by ideas, thoughts, and attitudes which can be developed over time. And understand, those who consider themselves to be happy and are producing phenomenal results in their life are not thinking pleasant thoughts 100% of the time. There are moments in a day where unpleasant thoughts creep in, but the key is to make sure that you're thinking pleasant thoughts majority of each day. It's never going to be 100%, but make sure it's majority of the time, 80% of the time, 90% of the time, that you're thinking pleasant thoughts. Don't let outward events and other people dictate how you should feel and how you should react. Learn the habit of happiness, of thinking pleasant thoughts, of owning who you are and how you react to the world, and become a master of your feelings, your emotions, rather than a slave to them. You have to understand that most people are just not self-aware of the things that they're saying and doing. So as long as you know that, when somebody says something or does something that annoys you or frustrates you or angers you, just know that that other person is probably just not self-aware of what they're doing. And they won't change. Even if you mention it to them, they have to choose to be self-aware about those things. They have to choose to want to change. So focus on what you can control, which is you and your own self, and you developing mastery of yourself so that you can reap the benefits of happiness. Happiness requires problems plus a mental attitude that is ready to meet distress with action toward a solution. We should store up moments of happiness and triumph in our memory bank so that in a crisis, we can draw upon those memories for help and inspiration. Now let's get into chapter 8. Here's the quote that stood out to me the most. A good personality is one that enables you to deal effectively and appropriately with environment and reality, and to gain satisfaction from reaching goals that are important to you. Many people want to improve themselves and long for a better personality, but have no clear-cut idea or direction in which improvement lies or what constitutes a good personality. A good personality is one that enables you to deal effectively and appropriately with environment and reality, and to gain satisfaction from reaching your goals that are important to you. We are built to conquer environment, solve problems, achieve goals, and we find no real satisfaction or happiness in life without obstacles to conquer and goals to achieve. People who say that life is not worthwhile are really saying that they themselves have no personal goals that are worthwhile. Get yourself a goal that is worth working for. Get yourself a project to work on. Always have something ahead of you to look forward to work for and hope for. Look forward, not backward. When you're not goal striving, not looking forward, then you're not really living. So this is the first ingredient of a success type personality. Have a sense of direction. The second ingredient is develop understanding. Understanding depends on good communication. Majority of our failures in human relations are due to misunderstandings. No one reacts to things as they are, but to their own mental images of themselves, of their environment. Everyone is responding to the environment, to people, to circumstances, to what is appropriate to them, based on their own mental images of themselves, of the environment, of others. Typically, we color incoming sensory data by our own fears, anxieties, or desires. But to deal effectively with others and the environment, we must be willing to acknowledge the truth about it, about the person, about the environment. Only when we understand can we then respond appropriately. We must be able to see the truth and to accept the truth, good or bad. Most of us do not like to admit to ourselves our errors, mistakes, shortcomings, or ever admit that we've been in the wrong. A good daily challenge for you to start doing is admit one painful fact about yourself and to somebody else. The success type personality is honest with others and themselves. It doesn't matter who's right, but what's right. In dealing with people, try to see the situation from their perspective as well as your own. The third ingredient is courage. Having a goal and understanding the situation are not enough. You must have the courage to act. For only by actions can goals, desires, and beliefs be translated into reality. Nothing in this world is absolutely certain or guaranteed. The difference between a successful person and an unsuccessful person is the courage that one has to bet on his ideas, to take a calculated risk and take action. Courage is not only needed for heroic deeds, everyday living requires courage. Anytime you choose to act, you could be wrong. Any decision you make can turn out to be the wrong one. But we must not let this deter us from going after the goal that we have set for ourselves. We must daily have the courage to risk making mistakes and possibly being humiliated. Mistakes and failures will always show up on your way toward a target, a goal. But you have to have the courage, the resiliency to bounce back and continue on, continue forward, and correct the action until you reach your target, until you reach your goal. So be willing to make a few mistakes, to suffer a little pain, to get what you want. Practice acting boldly in the littlest things in everyday life, so that when a big thing shows up in your life, you'll be ready to act boldly in that situation as well. The fourth ingredient is develop compassion. Successful people have respect for others' problems and needs. As people begin to feel compassion for others, they begin to feel compassion for themselves. Stop judging and blaming and hating people, and you will stop judging and blaming and hating on yourself. The reality is that all people are important. The fifth ingredient is developing a high level of self-esteem. Holding a low opinion of ourselves is not going to produce fruit. It's not going to produce great results. The person with a healthy self-esteem doesn't feel hostile toward others, is not out to prove anything, can see facts more clearly, and reacts appropriately to the environment. If you're carrying around a mental picture of yourself as a defeated, worthless person, stop doing that. Stop dramatizing yourself as an object of pity and injustice. As you begin to appreciate people more, you will begin to develop a healthier self-esteem. Challenge yourself to start treating people as if they have incredible value, and surprisingly, you'll start to see that your self-esteem will rise and increase. Just as you should be appreciated, all people should be appreciated. The sixth ingredient is self-confidence. Confidence is built on an experience of success. Celebrating those small victories, those small wins that you experience on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Small successes are stepping stones to greater successes and more confidence in yourself. We destroy our self-confidence by remembering past failures and forgetting about all our past successes. It doesn't matter how many times you failed in the past. What matters is the number of times you've succeeded, and then remembering and dwelling upon and reinforcing those memories of success. Use errors and mistakes as a way to learn and grow and become better, then dismiss them from your mind. The seventh and last ingredient is self-acceptance. No real success or happiness is possible until a person gains some degree of self-acceptance. This means you've reached a point where you're relaxed and you're able to just be yourself in any given moment. Changing your self-image, changing your personality does not mean changing yourself, but changing your own mental picture of yourself. From the very beginning, even when you were first born, there was never any strain just to be yourself. That is just naturally innate. It starts from the very beginning. You're always acting as yourself. The baby is always naturally acting out and being itself. The toddler is always naturally acting out and being itself. Naturally, that's why we like babies, kids, because they're freely acting like themselves, completely unrestricted, totally unashamed by what they're doing or saying. They're just relaxed and being themselves. Personality is simply a tool of the self that we use in dealing with the world. It is the sum total of our habits, attitudes, learned skills, which we use as a method of expressing ourselves. Self-acceptance means accepting and coming to terms with ourselves just as we are, with all our faults, weaknesses, shortcomings, errors, as well as our assets and our strengths. All of us are human and all of us have made mistakes, but this does not mean that we are a mistake. Learn to emotionally tolerate imperfection in yourself. It is necessary for us to recognize our shortcomings, but to not hate ourselves for them. Now let's get into chapter 9. Here's the quote that stood out to me the most. No one sits down and deliberately, with malice aforethought, decides to develop these negative traits just to be perverse. Now that we've discussed the ingredients that it takes to develop a success type personality, let's take a look at what a failure type personality possesses. The first is frustration. Frustration is an emotional feeling that develops whenever some important goal cannot be realized or when some strong desire does not come to fruition. We learn to tolerate a certain level of frustration without becoming upset over it. It is only when a frustrating experience brings excessive amounts of emotional feelings of deep dissatisfaction that it becomes a symptom of failure. Chronic frustration usually means that the goals we have set for ourselves are unrealistic, or that the image of ourselves is inadequate, or both. Expressing frustration, discontent, or dissatisfaction is a way of responding to problems that we all learned as infants. For example, when an infant is hungry, he expresses discontent by crying. This works for the infant, but it doesn't work for adult life. Yet some adults still hope that life will take pity on them, that life will just rush in and solve all our problems. The next time you feel like snapping at somebody, stop and ask yourself, is this merely my own frustration? What exactly is frustrating me right now? And then when you start to see that your responses are inappropriate, you have gone a long way to start controlling them. It also takes much of the sting away when someone is rude to you if you realize that it's probably not a willful act, but an automatic, habitual response. The best channel of all for aggression is to use it up as it was intended to be used, in working towards some goal. Second is aggressiveness. Aggressiveness, along with emotional steam, is very necessary in reaching a goal. We must go after what we want aggressively. We must grapple with problems aggressively. The answer to aggression is not to eradicate it, but to understand it and provide appropriate channels for its expression. Providing for a proper outlet for aggression is incredibly important. Third is insecurity. The feeling of insecurity is based on the concept or belief of inner inadequacy. If you do not feel like you measure up to what is required of you, then you feel insecure. And this is because we use a false measuring stick. The insecure person feels that he should be good, period. That he should be successful, period. But instead of creating these absolutes, they should be something to strive for, to reach for. Also, don't feel like you've ever arrived, that you finally have reached the top of your mountain and you're done. Get off your high horse and you'll begin to feel more secure. Begin to humble yourself and continue to always strive for greatness. Fourth is loneliness. All of us are lonely at times, but sometimes we can take it to the extremes and feel that we're cut off and alienated from other people. Because you've absorbed the identity of being alienated, human contact is no longer satisfying and you become a social recluse. But it's so important to do things with other people because it's a way for you to find yourself, to lose yourself in social activities. When we're around others, naturally we start taking our eyes off ourselves and putting it on other people. Regardless of your feelings, force yourself to mix and mingle with people. After that first cold plunge, you will find yourself warming up and enjoying it if you persist. As the lonely person continues to force themselves into social situations as an active contributor, that person will gradually learn that most people are friendly and that he is accepted. The experience of other people accepting you allows you to accept yourself. Fifth is uncertainty. Uncertainty is a way of avoiding mistakes and responsibilities. It is based on the false idea that if no decisions are made, then nothing can go wrong. But it's important to remember that there is no particular day that is 100% perfect. Every single day is a mixture of good and bad experiences. You cannot correct your course or get to your target or get to your goal if you're standing still. Sixth is resentment. When the failure type personality looks for an excuse for his failure, he often blames society. He resents the success and happiness of others because it's proof to him that life is shortchanging him and that he is being treated unfairly. Resentment is a way to make your own failures more palatable by explaining them in terms of unfair treatment. Resentment is also a way of making us feel important. Many people get satisfaction from feeling wronged. This is often called having the victim mindset. Resentment, even if based on real injustices or wrongdoings, is not the way to win. It very quickly becomes an emotional habit. And this type of person can only feel good when they're miserable. The victim sees themselves as somebody who should be unhappy. But you must remember that your resentment is not caused by other people, events, or circumstances. It is caused by your own emotional response, your own reactions. No one owes you anything. Seventh is emptiness. When someone feels dead inside, empty, nothing is enjoyable anymore. No goal is worth striving for anymore. life is terribly boring and not worth living. Emptiness is a symptom that you are not living creatively. You either have no goal that is important enough to you, or you're not using your talents and efforts in striving toward an important goal. It is healthy to strive for goals that are important to you, not as a status symbol, but because they are consistent with your own deep inner wants. I hope this has been helpful. It's been a lot of fun. We'll be covering other future chapters of this book, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, in other future videos, so make sure to check those out when those come out. I've also already covered other previous chapters of this book in other previous videos, so if you haven't checked those out, go ahead and take a look at those now, and I'll see you in the next video.